Hey folks, welcome to ScholarBot Tarot. Just call me Mayfield, and thanks a ton for stopping by the study space. Today, I just wanted to kind of update you guys, I guess, but as of this recording, I'm still working on my very first tarot book report, starting with The Tarot Restless by Winslow Dumaine. It's a really fun read, and I'm really excited to share with you guys my experience going through the guidebook from beginning to end. It's only been a month, and I'm already getting some decent results from this whole depth year thing. I've maybe had the urge to purchase a deck, but even then I haven't really pulled the trigger on making that buy anyways. So I'd say that things are going pretty well so far. I guess I'm on the right track. And then I wondered, on the track to do what? All this talk about depth years, and I realized that I didn't even have the correct definition in mind. Well, there are countless of articles and YouTube videos that are floating around on the interwebs that detail other people's progress throughout their depth years, as well as, initiating a depth year, but not too much information on what a depth year actually is. And that very well could be just me and the type of content that I end up consuming, but not very many people took a second to define what that depth year is. No buy or low buy? That sounds scary and unattainable. What's that? Well, the great news is I did actually manage to find a decent definition and some really great tips to keep in mind when you actually initiate a depth year, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So with these two sources, we can maybe inference a working definition. Getting started with the definition that I found. According to the Medium article, My Depth Year Diary, Part 1, What and Why by Carrie A. Brown. A depth year is, and I quote, is a year where you resist the urge to start shiny new projects and instead pick up abandoned projects that have been stuck in a state of half done. And she continues, it's a year of reading the books on your shelf rather than buying new ones. It's a year of digging out forgotten treasures at the back of the cupboard and using what's already in the pantry. And I end quote. The reason why I'm not really fond of this definition is because it sounds like a tad judgy, and I don't think that's intentional. Maybe that's just something that you need, but it just sounds like a, hey, put your wallet down, we have books at home. And again, maybe that's what you need to hear in order to cut it down a little bit. But at that point, it just sounds like a punishment. It sounds like you're sort of shaming yourself away from bringing things into your home that make you happy. So let's rework this definition a little bit with a few context clues from the YouTube video, 8 depth year preparation tips to know before you start by Anya Esme. Once again, this is by no means the only video out there on the YouTubes about the almighty depth year, but this is the one that I honestly found to be the most useful, and it is one of the first things that you find when you specifically type, what is a depth year into the YouTube search function. And truly, I was really grateful that I had found this video because it was so helpful in helping me understand how wrong I was about what a depth year was. I mean, I didn't understand what a depth year was meant to do, even at the time that I had set my resolution a month back. I mean, there has to be a certain amount of intention and discipline involved in order to both initiate and participate in a depth year, right? It's more than just not buying anything. And according to Anya, a depth year doesn't always have to equate to low buy or no buy, which I guess is probably a good opportunity to define those right now. A low buy means you're giving yourself a little bit of elbow room to be able to, buy a couple of things throughout the year. A no buy means you're not purchasing anything new at all. However, I do want to specify, now that I had watched Anya's video, and now that I'm going through my own depth year here, or we'll get to that in a second, I get a sneaking suspicion that when you initiate a well-intentioned depth year, low buy or no buy habits tend to be the result of that depth year, not necessarily a guideline. Anya also, for lack of a better term, warns us that emotional upheavals can be part of the process of going through a depth year. I mean, you start to learn more about yourself in the way that you find depth in the projects that you're exploring. And that made me realize something really important. A depth year is more than just a challenge to keep your wallet safe. A depth year definitely shouldn't be a punishment for buying too much stuff. It's a lifestyle transition. Let's see if we found a definition here. A depth year is a lifestyle transition that allows you the freedom to explore the projects that you have in front of you. I should specify that I'm saying lifestyle transition for a purpose here. I don't think practicing depth in projects in general is supposed to be temporary. I mean, maybe that's just my opinion. I'm also pretty new to this, so if you think that I'm completely full of it, then you are more than welcome to just call me out in the comments. At any rate, I think that's just where I got confused in the process. I was under the impression that not purchasing anything was the depth year, and it was this purge or abstinence from buying stuff for a year. And that's where I went wrong the first time. So the very first time I ever heard the word depth year even being uttered by someone was from Kim from the Abundant Life Tarot YouTube channel. It was in maybe about mid-2020 when she was in the middle of her depth year, and it was the first time that I ever discovered the tarot community here on YouTube. When I implemented my first low buy depth year, all the way back in late 2020, I gave myself a couple of rules. Number 1, art aesthetic I really liked. Number 2, the deck has to have matte or linen finish. Number 3, the art should have body, gender, and ethnic diversity, which is still kind of a criteria I have now, but we'll talk about that another time. Number 4, the artist needed to be from an underrepresented group, which we'll also talk about another time. Number 5, it had to be financially viable. So it had to have like extra cards, or maybe it was a limited edition with like some extra stuff in it. For campaign specific stuff, all the cards had to be finished, and it had to include stretch goals. And then number 7 was specifically for mass market decks. I had to purchase from indie bookstores, which I still sometimes do. And then a bonus criteria actually was that I was not allowed to order while there was stuff that was like in transit for me. So if I'm not waiting for a package, then I'm good to go, which should tell you how much I was harvesting at that time. There's a lot of unhinged, scattered rules here, right? And the worst part is, each rule didn't really overlap with one another very well. I think my criteria was they had to meet like 3 or 4 or something like that before I could actually make the purchase. But basically, I had set out so much red tape for myself that I couldn't shamelessly purchase anything. And I will talk about that in a future video essay when I can find the right words to express that inner struggle of culling my collection in that way. It sucked that shaming myself for purchasing things was something I intentionally did for myself. But I do want to reiterate, especially like looking back on it after learning more in depth about what a depth year was, I don't think a depth year is supposed to feel bad. So doing it this time with a specific project, that is the tarot book report, I am learning so much about myself. And I've only just started. I recognize what I value about the tarot decks that I collect. I discovered that I expect a little bit more intellectual stimulation from the art and explanations for those tarot cards, where the deck is trying to say something. They have to illustrate worlds that I would want to live in, or at the very least be coherently sound worlds that I can believe. I mean, I know I sound like a broken record right now. These are the things that I'm actively exploring in those tarot book reports. But saying it out loud, actively emphasizing, this is my depth year, doing close literary readings with my tarot decks that have something to say, represent, or even show, I can't really imagine myself bringing anything less into my collection at this point. I can't imagine bringing in another flowery fairy deck for its own fairy sake. But I can imagine bringing in a cartoon deck that makes me ponder the history of animation, especially the Fleischer animation. Clearly, it's going to depend on my areas of interest. Your mileage may vary. To end this on a super anticlimactic note, I'm probably not going to be buying copies of decks anymore, nor am I going to be purchasing any gimmicky Rider-Waite Smith or Marseille clones. I'm definitely not going to back projects on Kickstarter anymore due to their recent support of blockchains, but I will still be lurking since I'm awaiting on projects from last year. My new, more attainable rule is that I can purchase a deck after it's been fully funded and dispersed, and I see a flip through of it here on YouTube, and there are still more copies. Be great to support the artist directly, but if it's gone by then, it's gone. I have plenty of worlds to jump into right here. So with all that said, thanks a ton, folks, for joining me at my study space. I really appreciate it. I also appreciate all of you new subscribers, and I'm really loving that everyone's been enjoying the video essay that I plopped however long ago it was. It's got about almost 400 views now, and it was originally just going to be something that I was doing for colleagues, whoever wanted to watch it, and I didn't anticipate so many people really having fun with it. So I'm super grateful for that, and thanks a ton for your support. I do hope to see you guys soon, hopefully with another VR to some old hashtag I wanted to do, or even our very first tarot book report. We will see what's in the cards for us next time. But until then, thank you again. If you have anything, any thoughts, any comments, questions, concerns, you can go ahead and leave them in the comment section. Just remember to make discourse, not war. And I will see you next time. Bye.